Some things happen fast, like a vacuum finding your lost earring. A dog reacting to the word walk. And settling up with friends on the PayPal app. Send and receive money in seconds. Access your balance to send, shop, pay bills, and more. Download the PayPal app to get started. An account with PayPal is required to send and receive money. A PayPal balance account is required to hold and use a balance.
You said this place was steps from the water.
We just haven't found the steps yet.
How much did we save?
Enough.
Enough to get lost?
Or you could book a stay with Hilton.
Welcome to your oceanfront room, just steps from the water.
The Hilton sale is on now. Book on Hilton.com or the Hilton app and save up to 20% to get the stay you expected. When you want savings, not surprises, it matters where you stay. Hilton, for the stay.
When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
I'm Gary Birtles, one of the old gits from a long time ago. You've got to tune into Tricky Talks, I believe, so just do it. All the best.
Robertson, the first time we've seen them attack them, and there's Francis! Well, that's what I wanted to see Robertson do. And still Robertson, getting his shot in, and a goal! Robertson!
Hello, welcome to the Tricky Talks podcast. On the show today, as Forest's Europa League campaign comes to an end with a devastating loss at Villa Park, we'll try to figure out what went wrong, and we're going to do a bit of reminiscing too. Now, Chelsea isn't here. She's unwell, unfortunately, and to quote Chelsea, her eyes look like piss holes in the snow, so we wish her well, of course. But Kate and Mollo are both here. Kate, how are you feeling? I thought we'd all be wearing black today. We're nearly there, but you're still wearing the red. How are you feeling?
Utterly heartbroken, but also very grateful, if those two things can be felt at the same time.
Yeah, we're going to get into that as well, because that's exactly some of the talking points I want to go through later on. Mollo, you're here. You're not very well, though. You've got a bit of a croaky voice, so you're going to see how things go. But how are you after last night?
Devastated, gutted, but I wasn't altogether surprised, and I wish the croaky voice was from singing and shouting last night and celebrating, but once that first goal went in, it was quite hard to make ourselves heard, to be fair to the Villa fans.
Yeah, it's the first thing I want to talk about actually is full credit to Aston Villa. They thoroughly deserved the win. I thought the fans were absolutely electric and amazing. They put on a show. Forest, I think, found it a little bit overwhelming, but we wish Villa well and their fans in the final. And I hope they bring a trophy back to the shores. But let's talk about Forest then, and because that's what we're here to do. But just before we get into the ins and outs of the game, Mollo, you had a bit of an event pitch side before the game started, actually. So would you like to share some more details on that?
As much as I can. I answered an email along with a few other people from somebody, a marketing company with UEFA, and we had to send a little video in, and perhaps I think I've realised now it was related to Just Eat, so perhaps I was the greediest looking person to apply. I tried to just do it from my head up as well, but clearly my cheeks are getting flabby as well. And then in the end I had to be at the ground about 4:30, I think it was, give or take. And let's go in, and I didn't really have much idea what was going on other than bits and pieces, but then when we got there, they took us into the ground with pitch access stuff and all that. And the competition was, we had to head a ball. So the host was throwing it up, we had to head it into a Just Eat box, the thing that you see the bikers with. And if you hit it, I think it's been on previous games outside the ground, if you hit it, you got £25. If you got it straight in, you got £50. And it was me versus a Villa fan who was 6'2" and headed, I won't spoil it, but he was pretty good in the air. And he was juggling the ball and said he was an ex-pro, and I thought, brilliant, so I'm not going to ask his name. And we also had Fernando Llorente, the former Spurs, Swansea, Juventus and various other clubs. Unbeknown to me, only stopped playing last season. He was still playing professionally. And so we all had a go, but every time he had a go, he was representing both of us, if that makes sense. And that wasn't daunting at all. But he was brilliant and an amazing fella. The upshot is it was a very enjoyable experience. And while we were there, Dion Dublin walked by, Alan McInally walked by, Joe Cole. So just like selfie. And like Ellie had never heard of Alan McInally, and I was like,
really?
Just yeah, because I was too young. I said, just think their version of Stan Collymore for 1 year only before Bayern snapped him. He was an absolute wrecking ball, wasn't he? And just, I remember that goal he scored, which turned out to be against Millwall from his own. He got the ball off the keeper, just ran the length of the pitch and scored. So it was, an interesting experience. Then we came out, because it was so early, we ended up in the fan zone and met. The Villa fans are a good bunch, really enjoyed it, we had a great time. We were the only Forest fans there for a while, and quite a few of them recognised Ellie in particular and were coming up to talk. And I've got to say, not one of them was giving out the rubbish that was going out. It was online. It was very much, we'd have been the same. You've got to enjoy it while you can, because we're going to beat you today and all that. And it was proper, how it should be. And afterwards, they were celebrating, of course, and I think there was one or two minor incidents of people that couldn't deal with losing that got a bit aggy. But as we were walking back, because you have to walk miles, don't you, in Villa to find somewhere to park, a lot of Villa fans were coming up, and someone recognised Ellie and was saying, "Oh, well done, keep going, I hope you stay up." And to be honest, we'd already said to anyone, we know whoever won this, of course, 1,000,000% I wanted it to be us, but whoever won it, we want, unless you've got an issue with Villa, which we haven't, then you'd want them to go on and lift the trophy. So I'm still devastated, absolutely gutted, but it was a very fun start to the day. Not such a fun ending to the day, but credit Villa. Villa played superbly and we couldn't handle them for various reasons. But I think for once, we can look at ourselves, but I think more than anything, we just got to say we were just beaten on the day by a team that were really up for it, played to their... A Villa fan said to me afterwards, he said, "You're dead unlucky, you caught us on one of our unbelievable days that we have about 2 or 3 times a season." And I said, can't argue with that, really.
No, you can't. And we'll come on to that in a moment. But just want to very quickly mention about, there has been a bit of banter on social media with a few Villa fans, as you would have expected today, which is fair enough. And most of the good-natured stuff has come from Villa fans. Unfortunately, there's 1 or 2 unsavoury comments from a few Forest fans, surprisingly enough, which didn't surprise me given the person who it was that I saw. But enough, not going to give him in particular any airtime, and he's now been blocked, so enough said about him. But, Kate, let's crack on with the game then. And as Mollo alluded to, Villa was simply better on the day. But did Forest hit their ceiling in the first leg, do you think? Was it almost like it was one game too far for us?
I have to say that I think the thing that I found the most difficult was the fact that we didn't seem at it. You know, there were a lot of players that you were kind of going, "Ooh," in the first sort of 20 minutes. "Ooh, what are they doing that for? Oh, can't keep doing that. Not going to get away with that for very much longer." It was kind of the comments that were coming out, which I didn't think I'd be saying. You know, you always go to any football game, and particularly one with such importance, fully aware that you may not win, you know. And I think going to Villa Park, we know that, you know, more often than not, we come home on the wrong end of that result. But I did feel at the time that I wanted them to go down really fighting, and it didn't feel like they did. I'm trying to pick my words very carefully because I don't want to be ultra negative. I don't want to be mardy. I don't want to dig anybody out. But it just felt like they kind of just went, "Oh, okay then."
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. You'd like to see your team giving it everything. And in the first leg they did that for sure. And it was missing in abundance in the second leg, unfortunately. You're absolutely right. You want to see your team fighting to the death to try and get into the final. But I was trying to think during the game, especially in the second half when the goals were going in, Mollo, what were the reasons for this performance? And I was trying to think, did the occasion overwhelm the squad? Why did they look so passive compared to the first leg, do you think?
I think various reasons, but it all started from the lack of options for team selection. I think 3 key words that you'd say were missing: Morgan, Gibbs, White. The driving force, the heart. A Villa fan said after the game, "What a player Anderson is." best player on the park, even though we won. And luckily, all our other players were superb. He had different options, and that connection with Gibbs White, that's a dangerous, dangerous thing to play against. And we hadn't, understandably, we hadn't got anyone quite like him in that position as well as they tried to do. And he effectively, because he's such a workhorse, plays two positions. So I think that was a big, big part of it. When I saw the team, I couldn't figure out who was going to play where exactly. And I just thought there's a total lack of balance. But there was very few other options, assuming Murillo wasn't fit to play a full game or whatnot. And am I right in saying Nets isn't even in the squad, and obviously Tyro isn't? And so, yes, I'm not disagreeing that it appeared that we went down without a fight. But at the time when I'm watching, I think it wasn't so much the lack of fight, because I think the running stats will be off the charts because they spent so long chasing shadows. I think it's more in that first half an hour, a little bit of lack of ambition to attack them, to hurt them. The easy backward sideways pass was the option, and not because they were scared, not because the atmosphere got to them. I think more because they were thinking this is how to protect our 1-goal lead, because we've done it before so many times. But Villa weren't having that, and Villa were too good on the day, and Bondir's footwork and whatever you want to say, I think there can be no criticism of the effort. I mean, Yatesy was only on half a game, and the ground he covered, I felt like we should have started with him with hindsight, but that sounds daft because we lost the second half 3-0, but I think his intensity would have helped. I think I'm starting to really warm to James McAtee as a player. I've said I like his first touch, but the level of work rate you get out of Gibbs White isn't like, you should be doing that. It's unique. Not many players can do that. And McAtee had some good touches, but we were playing it on the back foot for the whole game, weren't we? Until maybe the last 5 or 10 minutes. And we can throw all sorts of accusations, but not one of those players didn't put in 100% effort. There's no doubt about that. They ran and ran, but unfortunately, they had no choice but to run because they were chasing. It felt like Villa had 14 players in it, and they played so well. And even the finishing, as good a player as he is, the goals that McGinn scored, as he lined it up, it was still a really tough finish. And he just put it in that one spot where the keeper's got no chance, didn't he? All of that combined. But I think if you want to know where it really started, you can trace it all the way back to Nets and Tyro being dropped from the squad. I'm not saying we'd have won with them playing, but it would have at least given them something else to think about and balance. With a full-strength squad, with a full-strength team, if we played like we did against, Sunderland last night, it still would have been a really, really tough game. We've got to recognise that. They got good players, and they came out and played at their level. That's not to be defeatist, because I think at full strength, at full tilt, it would have been a really tight game, but it wasn't tight last night. That's how I felt. The go-down fighting, I get that, but I think the phrase itself implies lack of effort, and I don't think it was that, but I know exactly what you're getting at. It was that lack of making it a close game in the end, I suppose.
Yeah, go on, Kate.
Just a couple of points there. I do think you're right in what you said about the team sheet. We were having that discussion, who's going to be there, who's going to be here, but it read like the team sheet was designed to try and hang on to the 1-0 lead, which I didn't love. There was a guy, there's always a guy sat behind me, isn't there? This is the story of my life. He was really, really vocal. And to start with, when we first got into the ground, it was quite overwhelming. Like, I don't know how you felt. I mean, it's great, but the nerves, like the feeling in your chest, and like, I'm like trying to tell myself, come on, calm down, keep breathing. It's okay, it's okay. And we hadn't even kicked off, at that point. And he was all like roaring this guy behind, come on, come on, come on, like we all were fine. And then obviously we started to lose. And then when he brought Yates on, he was in my ear going, why has he brought Yates on? That's the wrong substitution to make. He's giving up on this game. And I just turned around to him at that point and I just went, how can anybody ever blame Ryan Yates as the problem? I said, if you cut him, he bleeds Forest. And that is exactly what we need right now. This team looks like it lacks a leader. And in that, Morgan Gibbs-White is your obvious thought. But if you're going to bring somebody else on to rally Nottingham Forest, then for me, Ryan Yates is absolutely that person. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. And that was so frustrating and disappointing. And I think that remains the only thing that I'm disappointed about. I didn't feel as though I just felt like whatever happened, they'd leave it all out on the pitch. And I know what you're saying, Mollo, and maybe I'm being overly harsh, but I felt it was a nerves thing. I do think the occasion got to them. The penalty, he doesn't make those kind of mistakes very often. He seemed to be off it just in what he was doing. I agree, Luca Nett's big miss, Taiwo big miss after, the Monday. But it just didn't work, did it? All of it just didn't work.
No, and I was looking at the team sheet beforehand and seeing who was on the bench, with Gibbs White making the bench, Sangare, Murillo, Backward after his great display against Chelsea, all sat on the bench, and I thought he was playing for or expecting extra time and he would be able to bring some big guns on in the second half. When he started to bring the likes of
what are you going to say?
Luca on and Jimmy Sinclair, to be, with all due respect, and it was the other sub he made.
He put Backward on.
It was Backward on.
Didn't he?
Yeah, and it only became apparent after the game that the Sangare, Gibbs White and Murillo were injured and never going to play much anyway, and they were there purely for cosmetic reasons, if you excuse the pun, with regards to Gibbs White's face. But even bringing Murillo on for a few minutes, if he's injured and the game's out of reach, why bother risking him? It didn't make sense to me. So you question his substitutions during the second half, but understanding why he had to make those, but only after the game.
But what happened to, I changed the players, but I didn't change the team spirit? Where did that go? Because again, at half-time, I was saying to people, he'll make changes. He'll know it's not working. This is the thing with Vitor Pereira. He's not afraid to make the changes. And like you say, maybe it was the injury situation. We have to take that as fact because it's what he said after the event. Again, if you're going to bring Murillo on for 15 minutes, not when it's 4-0. If all he's got is 15 minutes, choose those 15 minutes very wisely. And I still, as we're sitting here talking about it now, I don't understand bringing on Luke. And I just don't. I don't get it.
I think it was to save Wood, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say
he was gone.
Yeah, we've talked about nerves, we've talked about injuries, but on that note, Mollo, do you think fatigue is finally catching up with Forest a little bit due to the fixture congestion that they've had? They've got a thin squad. Is the squad starting to get exposed a little bit? Are they suffering from mental exhaustion, perhaps? Any of the aforementioned,
I think the squad, but to take those one at a time, I think the squad is suffering from, I don't know about lack of depth, but in certain areas it's been caned, like at left back, obviously. In fact, full back generally, we've got Williams was our only first choice fit full back, wasn't he, at last night, that was available, because out of the four of them, one's injured, one's cup tied, two are injured and one's cup tied. So there's that. I don't think it's fatigue at all. I think the only fatigue we got was probably after about 25-30 minutes from chasing shadows, which was on Villa. I'll be really trying to put my football head on, which is not easy because my heart's there. Milenkovic is one of the best centre-backs we've had in a long while of his type. At peak, John Terry would have struggled against Ollie Watkins last night after his bang on the head. Ollie Watkins was sensational last night, and that wasn't just down to Milenkovic's tug on the shirt. He was ripping everyone, his movement, his pace. The Villa fans beforehand were saying they don't understand why Watkins gets a hard time online from the online community of Villa fans. Said, we all love him, and some people give him stick. And I've ironically said, while I was having a drink with some Villa fans, said, I think he's a class player. I said, him and John McGinn always play well against us. I wish I'd never said that, but anyway, all the lucky things. So I don't think it was fatigue. I don't think it was mental fatigue either, because they've had the week's rest. Not many of them played, but, and Kate said it, missing their leader. When Forest got relegated under Brian Clough, who was missing all season? Stuart Pearce, missing their leader. It's easy to say, because we've got spanked 4-0 in the end, and because we were trying to pile forward, not very successfully, we got undone brutally on the break. It's easy to sort of look at it and say that we never laid a glove on them. Goals change games, we know that. When we had that half, I won't call it a chance, I'm being a bit generous. Hutchinson did that fantastic little turn inside and curled one that I thought was going into the top corner, but obviously didn't. If that goes in, the whole dynamic changes. I'm not saying yes, we'd have won, who knows, but it changes it. It's like a balloon popping everything, isn't it, if that goes in? The crowd are quieter, they're pacing,
Christ, we've started well and we're now 2-0 down in effect. When that didn't go in, I sort of turned to her and I said, I think that was a bit of a chance for us to do something. And another time, Chris Wood was clean through, but the ball wouldn't sit down, so he had to turn on it. And then instead of holding it, he just flopped trying to get a penalty. And it's like, if one of those goes in, and it's a massive if, I'm clutching at straws to say we're in the game, but if that happens, it's a different conversation we could have been having. It didn't, and Villa absolutely punished us, and let's be fair, some very good defending, some very good goalkeeping, a little bit of poor shooting. It could have been a lot worse in theory, but I just think I genuinely think the vast majority of it was down to Villa taking apart the team that on the pitch, and this sounds harsh, wasn't good enough to compete with Villa at the end of the day. If that same 11 play Villa 100 times, they get beat 99 times, don't they? And we were just hoping it was that one at the time, you know. And sadly, that's what happened. We just move forward now and get the season over and done with now.
You mentioned about Forest being in the game, but were they ever in the game, Kate, at all? Because I know it was 0-0 for quite a long period in that first half, but then you had a couple of what I would call turning point moments, didn't you? You had the goal right before half-time, which gave them a bit of a boost. Well, I say before half-time. It wasn't right before half-time, but you get the point. And then you had the penalty, which was obviously a big psychological moment. But were they ever in the game at all? And looking on the flip side, when did it feel over to you? At those turning point moments, or did you think it had gone?
Business owners, you know Sundays drive traffic, and NFL Sunday Ticket makes them drive more. Get every live, out-of-market Sunday afternoon game at your venue, and right now, through June 30th, you can get 15% off and up to 6 free streaming devices, exclusively through EverPass. One platform, every location, every Sunday. Limited time offer, subject to terms and conditions.
Tomorrow morning is knocking. Stock your fridge now. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or a sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel, maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
After that,
So quite a few of us had said before the game, the longer we can hold without them scoring, the stronger we will get minute on minute. That's how it felt going into that game. Like, we knew they were going to come at us. We knew it was going to be loud. We knew all of these things, but we were coming off the back of that fantastic, 10-game unbeaten run. The incredible performance at Chelsea where, felt like we've got a squad for the first time, all these positives. So we were just thinking, just stay in it. The longer you stay in it, the better it gets for us. And to a degree, that happened. As somebody said, 20 minutes, that's the first block done. Now what we've got to do is get to half time, and then it just went, didn't it? And when they scored their goal, I was okay. I was disappointed, but I was okay. I was like, it's all square, it's back to all square. Now is the time, guys. Now is the time to turn it on, to turn it up, to dig in, to really, really go for this. And then it just,
Yeah, I think they'd gone emotionally, I think, especially after the penalty. I think that had a massive impact and they never really recovered from that. And obviously one of the reasons for that is missing that leadership, Mollo. Like you say, if it could have been different had they had that leadership on the pitch. But I just wonder as well, did also the pressure and expectation become too much? They start off the European campaign and they seem to have shifted from a sort of happy to be here kind of feeling to one of genuine belief that they could go all the way. And that was a massive shift across the whole of the season. But did it become too much in the end for them, do you think?
It was too much for the players on the pitch on the day, but I still stand by what I said, that we could have picked any of our 11 that were fit in any way you want, and they would be struggling for balance, struggling for... I don't mean leadership per se, because you've got that in Milenkovic at the back, although he was having to concentrate on his own game because
But he wasn't captain.
Yeah, like, captain's just an armband at the end of the day.
I know,
football.
but I do think he should have been.
Don't think that changed the result though.
Probably not.
There's no driving force beyond Anderson trying to get us forward. Wide men did what they could do with what little space they had. And weirdly, Hutchinson beat his man a number of times and put the ball in. But I was saying, there's nobody in there. There's nobody in there. Even if he crosses it, there's nobody there. We're supposed to be playing tilt front in a sense at the moment, and we never really seem to have that because we were having to defend so deep. Credit where it's due. When I saw Lingard was in midfield, not Lingard, I wish it had been Lingard, the ex-Man U centre-back in midfield, I thought, that's interesting. He did a job to make Anderson's impact slightly limited, didn't he? Well, he didn't stop him being a top player he is, but it limited his overall impact, and without his mate in front of him, it was difficult to see how we were going to break him down. And it got to the point that it was sorry to use this phrase, it was classic old school Dyche ball, wasn't it? It was just hoof, because there was nothing on. And, I'm an advocate of don't muck about in your own box, because if we didn't in the first half, we don't concede that first goal, ironically. So,
yeah,
it is what it is.
I talk about expectation, and of course, we fans had expectation as well, didn't we? And we always thought that, hope and expectation. And I was thinking about the reaction of fans, and I've been looking a bit on social media today, and it looks like fans are falling into one of two camps. They're either looking at it from a positive aspect and thinking, well, we're really proud of the run that we've had. It exceeded our expectations. We did really well to get to the semi-final, considering 4 years ago we were playing Hull just before the Championship playoffs. Now look at us, we're in a European semi-final. Contrast that with the other camp, who are angry at the manner of the defeat and are effectively slagging off the players for their commitment, if you like, or effort, or however you want to badge it. Where do you guys stand? I mean, I'm very much in the former, that absolutely proud of the run the team have had, and it's been an amazing experience, especially for you guys following the team abroad for every single trip, and one of only 241 fans to do so who've seen it all 16 games. But where do you sit, Kate, in terms of are you proud of the run, or are you quite angry at the manner of defeat?
Absolutely, firmly in both camps. So I have had the most incredible time. I have loved every moment of it. I have lived every moment of it. I am grateful, genuinely grateful for every moment of it. I take none of it for granted. I said that a few times today, and I truly, truly mean it. I will always be disappointed at the way we went out in that game. And if that makes me a bad fan or Mardy or any of those things, then I will take that. I will take that criticism. I can't help it. It's how I feel. I'm always really emotional around football. Am I proud of them? Of course I am. I'm proud of them getting there. Let's be honest. In this competition, we've seen fantastic football, god-awful football, amazing, bizarre moments of luck, moments where you think, what the hell is going on? We've seen it all across this competition. And, again, amazing to have experienced all those things. My overriding emotion coming out of that ground was, I'm really sad that we went out like that. And that's just me being honest.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between disappointed and sad and being angry. Angry is when you hide behind a keyboard and start to slag off all of the players, calling them all the names under the sun, and certainly we're not that. So there is a difference. And yeah, every fan, of course, they're going to be sad and disappointed, aren't they, given what happened?
Yeah, there was an element of anger last night. There was an element of, why didn't you fight harder? Why was that the game that it all came apart at the seams? And again, I think all these things are valid, Simon. It's how you carry yourself, and obviously how you express that maybe we need to focus on. They're human beings. We're all good people. Nobody's, and I'm not digging any individuals out. There was an element of anger. There were points when I was angry. There were points when I was sad. There were points when I was grateful. There were points. I've been through the lot, So I can't quantify it in one way other than to say, like, disappointed but grateful.
Yes, you're right, in terms of it's how you express and portray that emotion, isn't it? And the way it comes across is the key thing here. And I know, Molly, you obviously with Kate in the stands yesterday, and what was the general consensus among the supporters as the second half developed? Do you think, and at the end especially, when they're generally very good at clapping the team off, they were exceptional at Chelsea on Monday, as you know, and how did it feel at the end? Did the fans sit in either camp, do you think?
No, it was right. My view is, I'll do what I do. You can do what you do. Everyone else. I personally choose, barring having to be somewhere, not to leave a ground early, ever, unless I absolutely had to. And some people had enough, particularly at 4-0. And actually, Villa, I know what it must be like to be an away fan at Forest now, because all sides of the ground were singing. It's really difficult to make yourselves heard. And a lot of the chanting was, we're all going to Istanbul, all that sort of stuff, which is completely and utterly normal and understandable. We're going to Turkey, you're going home, and all that.
4-0 on your big day out.
Yeah, all the usual stuff. And I get that. We'd have done exactly the same, no doubt about it. So I'm not for a minute saying they shouldn't have done that.
Me neither.
But I just sat there thinking, okay, some people had enough and they went. And that's completely their prerogative. I won't criticise because it felt quite personal to lose, not the Villa fans, because it's been such a journey and a long journey. I managed to get 4 trips in. I think it was in total, wasn't it, the last time? This time it was 7. The time before that, when I was too young to go, I think it was 3 or 4. European days, it was 5. We've had 7 away trips, and obviously 6 abroad. Is that right? Yeah. No, 7 abroad and 1 to Birmingham. I think I've lost count. That's how good it is. So I felt I wanted to stay and applaud the boys at the end. Not for last night's match. That's one part of it. And what was really, really a special thing to be part of was nobody was giving them abuse. Nobody was doing probably, I don't know, collectively, let's say half the Forest end was still there. Maybe less, maybe more, I don't know. I haven't seen the pictures. Everyone who was there just stood and clapped. But it wasn't like a quick clap. I'm talking, my hands were hurting 2-3 minutes of non-stop. And this is going to sound so wet. I know I'm going to sound like a right wet wipe. Easy for you to say. But genuinely, I could feel my previously non-working tear duct since 1991 welling up. I thought this is actually quite a connection, emotional moment. I totally understand why some people chose to get off, especially when I end up sitting in traffic for ages just to get onto the M6. But actually, I wish more could have been a part of that. They deserve to be, because they're obviously the regular fans. There was in 2000 there or whatever. Because I told you I sound like a wet wipe, but it definitely was a real, genuine thing at the end. And I didn't hear one person criticising the team at that point. Obviously, during the game, there's a little bit, why aren't we doing this? I did hear quite a lot in front of me. People saying, we can't lay a glove on them. They're just a step ahead. And I thought, actually, that's a fair assessment. And it felt like that until those last 10 minutes when the game was gone. Genuinely, the fans who chose to stay, and fair play to them who did, there was that. They're not going to show that on camera, are they? Half empty away and applauding for 2 minutes. I get that. But if you're in there, people know what I mean. It was a moment, and I'm so proud of how far they've come. And we all thought we were going home after Brog and whatnot, and Michelin, and everything else. So yeah, I think people that left, they didn't slate them as they left or anything like that. They probably just thought, I've had enough. I'm going to beat the traffic. I can't have my it's ringing real banter. That obviously it's a sad thing we're watching. It's not a league match, is it? So there you go.
Let's look at the bigger picture there. I mean, how should Forest fans be framing this European journey, Kate? Given, like I said earlier, 4 years ago, they were getting ready for the Championship playoffs almost, and look at us now. Do you think this campaign has accelerated the Marinakis project? When you take over a football club, you have short to medium and long-term plans, and you try and gauge where you're going to be in 5-10 years' time, but they've perhaps got to this point quicker than anybody would have imagined, including Marinakis, I would imagine. So do you think it's accelerated his project?
That's really difficult. I certainly think it did this season, the being there, and that's what I mean by taking nothing for granted. And we shouldn't take anything for granted, because that's a meteoric rise, that we've been on. And so I think on its own, being there this season and getting that far is an acceleration. Where we go next is a much bigger question, because obviously we're not in Europe next year. We don't get another go. And in a way, that's what makes it more difficult, isn't it? But it also is what makes it so special, because we don't have the every yearness. If Arsenal don't win the Champions League, they go again next season. As Forest fans, you don't have that. So when it comes, you really appreciate it. I worry about what will happen over the summer in terms of who we will retain and who will go with what we're potentially facing next season. And so I think you take this campaign as in isolation, there's your acceleration. And we did great. We got to the semi-finals. You know, we were a game short. That's all. You know, that's fantastic. Whether or not the fallout from that is that actually we take a little step backwards remains to be seen. For me, our best hope next season would be having some success in a domestic cup. I can't at the moment envisage another season like last season where we're flying up the league and sitting second and third. I could be wrong. I love being wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll come into that in a minute. You're right.
You absolutely can. Great. Please tell me how. I want it. But at the moment, maybe it's the morning after, the night before, it all feels a little bit fragile.
Yeah, I think it's given them an appetite for more, and perhaps the club as a whole, not talking about individual players, the club have now been there and done it for a season and seen how great it's been on that journey, and hopefully it'll give everybody an appetite to do it again someday. And I know they're not going to be in Europe next year, but now they have a 10 plate and they've been through it and done it. They know what works, they know what doesn't work. So hopefully it will mean they can be better prepared for the next time they're in Europe, which hopefully won't be too far away. I know it's not going to be next year, but given the way the league is shaping out at the end of a season, where you have Forest, you have Palace, you have Newcastle, you have Spurs, all teams who have been in Europe this season, all teams are facing struggles in the Premier League. And it's just the nature of the demand of these competitions. So if the likes of Bournemouth and Brighton and whoever else gets in the Conference or the Europa League next year, they're going to face the same problems and the same issues, whereas we are not. So I think that's an opportunity to progress next season and to bounce back in the Premier League. And perhaps, you're right, not necessarily aim for the seconds or the thirds, but aim for that European spot via the league or via a cup, because
I need to stop you, Simon.
Why is that?
I need to stop you. There is still a scenario where we can qualify this season.
There is. Won't go there, but there is, you're right.
By the end of this weekend, we could be 3 points off it.
Yeah.
As long as Villa win and Man City win, but anyway.
Yeah, to carry on my point, there are so many teams qualifying for Europe these days that almost half the league can get into Europe given the right scenario. So there's no reason why that can't continue next year and Forest be part of that. So I think it's certainly going to give them food for thought leading into the summer. Kate, you're right, you know, who's going to be retained and who's not. And there have been conversations around whether Elliot Anderson's on the move or not, and he'll be a massive hole to fill. And you've seen what happens when Gibbs White is out of the team and he doesn't play. You know, if he was to depart,
got to keep him.
It's imperative that we keep him. But you can see the gaps that occur if they don't play him, albeit if he does get sold, they're going to have money to replace him and things like that, which obviously they couldn't do last night.
That might be the worst thing that a Villa fan said to me the entire time that we were there. We were having this conversation in one of the pubs before the game, and he said, I want us to go in for Morgan Gibbs-White, and if we've got Champions League football, he might come. I was like, you stop that right now! Stop it! Because I can't even.
No, we'll cross that bridge if we come to it over the summer, of course.
We'll take Morgan Rogers then, because
yeah.
one of them won't get a game.
Yeah, true.
So we'll see. I've got to read you this, though. You saying that reminded me. 11:39 last night on my way home, more or less silence in the car, just not sulking, but you know what it was like. And one of the lads put on our group, if we stay up with some half-decent summer recruitment, that many teams will be in Europe next year, a really good chance for us to qualify again. But I think you're absolutely right in all that you said, Simon. 10 teams could be in Europe. So we really want to be back in English teams now, don't we, in Europe? And Man City in a cup final, that doesn't matter with Chelsea.
Yeah. A lot of it depends on the performance of the Champions League, doesn't it, in terms of English teams getting that extra spot. And I'll put you on the spot, both of you. If getting Arsenal winning the Champions League this year meant that next year they continued to have an extra team in the Champions League and that ultimately resulted in Forest qualifying for a European competition, would you accept Arsenal winning the Champions League or not?
Ask me a hard question. Of course. All day long. I've got no axe to grind with Arsenal. It's funny that they keep bottling stuff, but I've no axe to grind with Arsenal. It's a good away trip.
You don't want Arsenal to become one of the exclusive members of winning the European Cup?
If it means we have a better chance of getting into Europe, then absolutely.
Well, we don't know for sure. I don't even know how that coefficient actually works now. So
I think we've definitely got 5 next year, haven't we, already?
Okay, yeah. I want to start to talk about, how will we remember this European run? We've got an emotional connection to that campaign. I think it's brought everybody together, both fans and the club and the players and the manager, especially towards the end. But I want to talk about and reminisce a little bit about the European run. And I know, Kate, you've got Will with you, who has taken part in seeing Forest abroad. I don't know how many games he's been to abroad, but I'm interested to know what his perspective of the journey that we've been on from a kid's viewpoint. You know, what did he think as a child, seeing Forest in Europe for the first time?
Come on in, Will. Just going to move over so I can share the camera with my son. You need to sit so that you can be seen, darling. I'll move over a bit more and I'll move a bit back.
There he
go.
is.
Shuffle,
He's
shuffle.
the man. How you doing, Will?
You get the dog as well, which is an absolute joy. No, leave her.
Yeah, you okay, Wilf?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think of Forest in Europe then? What's your experience been like?
Good.
Yeah. How many games have you been to? Can you remember?
Tell us.
So, Seville, Braga, Graz,
Utrecht.
Amazing. So I know Molo and your mum have been to all of those as well. And I'll ask them this question in a moment. Which one was your best away day, do you think? Of all the places you've been to, which was your best and favourite?
Seville.
Seville? Well, that was the first one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, any reason why?
Because it was the first one.
This was the first one. Good
Because
enough
it's the
reason.
first one. Come on, you can do better than this, Will.
And it was sunny.
Here. But what was amazing about Seville? What were your absolute best moments?
The march. It was really, really nice when the first goal we scored was there.
Yeah. Can you remember who scored it?
Igor Jesus.
Yeah.
Were you out on the town having a few beers with your mum after the game, Wilf?
No, she didn't drink.
She's setting a good example. What was your favourite away day then, Kate?
I think it's a really difficult one to answer because they all had something different and something special about them, and each one was in its own right had a bit of something, maybe with the exception of Braga, which was pretty grim. I, like Wilf, loved the march. It was iconic. I know loads of people moaned about it. I loved it. A quite literal Red Army marching through the streets of Seville on our way to our first European fixture in decades, and that was very much something special. Walking over the bridge, coming into the town centre in Graz with sparkly lights everywhere and being able to hear the Forest fans singing in the distance and literally being able to follow the noise, which is where I found you stood up on a windowsill, isn't it? Chanting Molo.
Don't know what we're talking about.
That game was really, really special. The fan zone in Utrecht. I've got to say, Turkey, amazing city, fabulous reception. What a game. Took Sam to that one. He said it was the best few days of his life ever, when he came back. And then the moment, the feeling of going full circle in Porto, starting in the sunshine, coming back to the sun being out, and I honestly can't pick a single favourite. There's been so many, but I think the nicest feeling for me has been, as a mum, being able to take Wilf and Sam, get on those planes and know that we're flying off to see Forest in Europe. That is something that I will cherish.
Yeah, I mean, I know exactly where he's coming from. I was talking with Danny last night, and we were never in a position to go to any of the away trips, unfortunately, but we have been to the majority of the home games, and that was his experience for the first time of European football as well. And especially when we were there for the Malmo game, that was the very first Forest game I ever watched on telly, was the European Cup final against Malmo. So for it to come full circle almost and have Danny there with me, it was a great experience to share with him, and we were talking about that last night, and it's given us an appetite for more, for sure. And you, Molo, as well, with Ellie and Henry and George and Gemma, sharing a lot of these experiences home and away with your family. But what was your favourite away trip? Any preference?
Kate's nailed it in that there was different things. So I'm gonna pick out two or maybe three. It wasn't Villa Park, I'll say that. Although, up until the kick-off, it was actually a really good day. From a football experience perspective, and I hate saying this because it's the only one where Jet Ellie was unable to get time off, but going to Fenerbahce, that was unbelievable. You had to be there and lots of people, because of the bad press, didn't go that might have done. It's probably the one game where almost anybody could have got a ticket that was a member, and they missed out on the most incredible atmosphere I've ever experienced. And you thought Villa Park was loud last night. And it was, for an English crowd, but this was another level. And watching it back on TV, all we could hear was the whistling and the screaming, but if you were there, it was so much more than that. So that was that. And the welcomes we've had everywhere, apart from the Spanish police, the welcomes we've had everywhere have been absolutely superb. Porto was special in one way.
because it's probably, well, without doubt, it's the one where the most of my group of mates went, and at its peak, when we were sat by the river having a drink, it was got to a point, because we had such a good spot, we were like almost doing shifts going to get food, and, you know, I'll be back in half an hour, whatever. And even came back, that was unbelievable. Where'd you go? And then next people say, we're going there then. And I think we never ever got a photo of everyone together, stupidly, because you know what it's like, you know, it gets warm and you need more lemonade and what have you. But I think at one point there was between 20, 25 people all together, kids, dads, what have you, mums. But you've hit the nail on the head there, in that some of the home games were fantastic, because all 5 of us were there, wife and all 3 children. But in terms of the away games, 4 of us went to Utrecht, but it's probably, and this is going to sound bizarre, Midtjylland, because 4 of us went. Henry was lucky enough to get a ticket at the last minute, so 3 of us got in the game. It was probably the most bouncing away end of all the away trips, and there was supposedly only 600 or something in there, but I think somehow something went wrong somewhere, because there was definitely more than that in the actual ground. I don't know how, but we won't go down that road. And it was just absolutely bouncing, and obviously we won it on penalties, and then just everything about it was incredible, apart from the expense, but it was worth it. Memories for life, isn't it? And that's the thing. And to do it, to use Kate's analogy, or it might have been yours, I can't remember now, the full circle. You know, I was 22 when I last went to a Forest European away game in Munich, and he's been 22 throughout this thing. And it's just been, you know, sharing that's been amazing. There's been lots of stresses along the way, not just football ones, as we all know. You know, the flights and the delays and the, are we going to make it? Isn't it typical? I don't think you've spotted this, Kate. Last night I got given, there was people going around with Flixbus vouchers, and then Flixbus, I said to these people, I said, Flixbus, love Flixbuses, we've done this. Said, yeah, I have loads then. I'm like, brilliant. I'm thinking, 20%
do they have an expiry date? Yeah, I was going to say, do they have a long expiry date?
I haven't checked that yet.
Give them all to Des Oldham. He's Mr. Flixbus.
Yeah, well, we all have been this year, haven't we? It's been the only way to, you know, to some of the crazy routes we've taken, like Faro to Porto, like 6 hours worth of Flixbus or whatever. But, mind you, it was only €30. Yeah, it's just been an incredible experience. And I mean, picking your favourite moments is hard. Sitting by the river in Porto with loads of your lifelong mates, took some beating, and some of your family. Having your whole family around you at a home game was amazing to experience it together. But I think what we'll do over time, and you know, when we have grandkids and we're talking to them, and Ellie talking, it'll be that run, that year is encompassed, because it's very, very different to it used to be in Europe, apart from the Spanish police, in that we're welcomed everywhere, on the whole behaved well everywhere, and we're, you know, got rave reviews, and there was enough people there to keep most people sensible. I know there was 1 or 2 minor things, but when you think of the thousands and thousands of people that travelled, potentially for some people the amount of alcohol involved, actually the Forest fans have done nothing but make Nottingham proud, as it were, make us proud of Nottingham as well, which we always are, but it's been incredible, and we've had predominantly nothing but good comments. So the whole thing. Be
a really good question in the car, and it's just coming to my head now, and I want to ask it to you two, because I think it's a great one. So do you remember what you asked me in the car? No, didn't you? So he said, which season did you prefer, Mum? Last season, when we were winning and, you know, top of the table, anticipating possible Champions League, or this season, where we've had 4 managers, a relegation battle, but we've been in Europe and made it to the semi-final? Which one do you prefer? So I'm going to put that question.
You first,
Simon.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's a really, really difficult question, because on paper, this is our second best Premier League season of the recent era, isn't it? Given the other 3 seasons, one was a Champions League attempt and the other 2 were trying to avoid relegation. So you think about comparing the top 2 Premier League seasons, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, but the one common denominator is there is always something to play for, isn't there? Whichever way you look at it. And that's what we want. We want to play for things, don't we? We want to achieve trophy wins or qualifying for Europe, don't we? We don't want to be at the bottom of the league. I can't answer that question. It's hard.
Question, you can answer it.
Personally, actually, I can. I can actually, because personally I've been to a lot more games this season now that Danny's a little bit older than I did last year, and we've been to a lot of the London away trips as well.
Unbeaten.
Yeah, no, I lost at Fulham, unfortunately.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but won everything else. So I'm going to say this season, from a personal point of view, given the number of games I've been able to take Danny to, and obviously including European games within that.
Do you know what? I think it's a great question. But it's also, for me, an easy question. Football, for me, because I'm an old fart, is about creating lifelong memories. And last season was absolutely brilliant, and Liverpool away, and etc., etc. But this season, creating lifelong memories with you, not just my daughter, but the whole family, celebrating, and I'm going to say it, celebrating winning the first leg of a semi-final. Whatever the celebration police say. We had hope last week. I've never, ever really had expectation, despite the singing and dancing, because it's a tough place to go. But this season, for that reason, when we reminisce about football, and Ellie's been there with me for years with all of the lads my age and older lads, and yabbering on about when we went to Munich, or what it was like in Malmo at that time, or the craziness of Auxerre, whatever, or the lads a little bit older than me talking about European finals, and we're there green with envy. They've got their own memories now, and I'm lucky enough to have been a part of that, but they've got their own memories that they'll carry with them to their children, grandchildren, whatever. But
you mentioned
now if I was getting.
You mentioned the celebration police, and for those that did not celebrate the first leg win over Villa, how gutted must they be feeling right now, because they're not celebrating at all? They haven't had that moment of joy and that celebration that everybody, that you guys had after that first leg, and you can never replace that. So how gutted must they feel now that they've had nothing to celebrate?
Each to their own, but I loved one of the comments I saw somewhere. Celebrate with discipline. I was like, celebrate with discipline. Genuinely went flying down 2 rows when we scored. I've floated out of that ground, and I've literally said, the fireworks might be a bit previous. And I said, so what? Enjoy it. This is, I said to both Ellie and Henry, I said, this doesn't come along very often. I've waited 42 years. Just enjoy it. Literally, as Max Scott goes, Ellie, how you feeling? She's like, Istanbul, and I have no problem with that. I think some people did, but we dealt with that before. But it's the whole thing has been incredible. It's been the highlight of the season, because most of the league campaign has been a bit tough. We've turned it around lately and got some wonderful results, and Sunderland away was great. But like Kate said, it's the whole thing. Going into another town where we were welcomed, and filling up the squares and the bars and what have you, and whether it be the march to the ground or hanging off the side of an Irish bar with your flag, and whatever it is, it's just been a wonderful, wonderful thing. Can't knock it. This season.
Paul Morley of the Forest Focus hit the nail on the head this morning and got it spot on. And I'll quote him actually in his tweet. He said, "Waking up this morning with an empty feeling should make you realise that you should get lost in those special moments when they come along, because they don't come along very often." So he hit the nail right on the head there. And you and Ellie, especially Mollo, after celebrating like you did outside the Peter Taylor stand with Max Scott, you can keep those memories forever now. And for those that were slanging it off, they've got nothing.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think we're going to do it again? Do you want to do it again? Do you think we're going to get into Europe again soon? Be honest.
I'm sure he does.
We've got 15 months to save up before the next campaign, potentially.
Yeah.
Or is that going a bit too early?
Yeah, you need to get your mum to increase your pocket money, Wilf, so you can save up for a few more European trips.
Do you get pocket money, Will? No.
He's old enough to go out and work now, surely.
Yeah, get him a paper round, Kate.
Yeah.
Still exists.
And then he can pay for his flights himself, maybe. Well, we've been going nearly an hour, would you believe? Is there anything you want to add now, Wilf, before we end the show? Anything you want to say about your European experience?
Okay. All right, go on then. Scoot your boot then.
Right,
thanks, Wilf. Yeah, we'll be back next week, hopefully with Premier League safety officially confirmed. It's going to be difficult given the injury situation. We'll see what team gets put out against Newcastle. But Kate, any final thoughts from you?
So this morning I went down to Amber Nature Reserve and had a chat on the breakfast show on Radio Nottingham. She asked me that question, and my answer was, and still is, we take everything we can from that European campaign. We leave that game last night where it should be, at Villa Park. We move forward. We get behind them on Sunday. We go home. We sing Mull of Kintyre at the top of our voices. and we get those last few points on the table and get Premier League safety 100% wrapped up, and then we can all rest.
Absolutely, yeah. It's unfortunate the way the fixtures have worked out is that Forest are playing first on Sunday, followed by West Ham away at Arsenal later that afternoon, and Spurs are playing Monday night. Had the fixtures fallen the right way, Forest could have made things a lot easier for themselves, knowing the scores from the other games. But it does mean they're going to have to go full steam ahead to try and get those points against Newcastle, doesn't it, Mono? So any final thoughts on that from you?
Tough game. They started to get back off that bad run, haven't they? And they're one of the teams that we've mostly struggled against in the Premier League, other than that shock result when Chris Wood got his hat-trick. So it'd be tough, but see who turns out for the walking wounded as well, because all the injuries. Obviously, Nets and Tyler are available as options as well. I'd be amazed looking at the recent pictures if Morgan is fit to play. I really hope he is, but I'm hearing whispers he might be done for the season, which wouldn't be a surprise because it's horrendous, but unconfirmed. That's not reliable info, to be fair, but they're the whispers.
Yeah, we'll see. One big effort, lads, and then we can all look forward to another Premier League season next year. And that's it. Just bang on the hour, so everybody, thanks for listening or for watching. We'll be back with you next week with a review of that Newcastle game, and we'll look forward to another game at Old Trafford the following weekend. So thanks again, and bye for now.